For hundreds of years, people did not want the best and latest medicine. They wanted an old doctor who learned in Greek and Latin. The laboratory was not part of life, and in the 1880s, it suddenly changes, and people want what's new and different. My training had been very traditional history of medicine, history of science, that is, the study of changing ideas and discoveries, how one scientist talks to another and new ideas come along and replace them, and there's a growth of knowledge. And I actually had been teaching courses like that. At some point, a student asked, well, did people know about this? And I started wondering the question about, did the knowledge just sort of seep out of the technical laboratory into popular awareness, or didn't it? And I assumed it did. I assumed there was a kind of delay. But then when I started looking more carefully, there were some real surprises in this story. And I found this early image of Pasteur supervising a rabies shot in 1885. It was a nice image, but then I started thinking about it as an image. First of all, it was in a newspaper. So why was somebody getting an injection newsworthy? And then in this particular example, there's a crowd of people in the background, and sort of fashionably dressed people. So why were they watching this boy get a medical treatment? Then I started finding political cartoons and comic cartoons that referred to Pasteur and going to Paris for treatment. Now, I knew that Pasteur had made a great discovery about rabies, but why was this a cartoon in a comic newspaper in the 1880s? And so what that said to me immediately is, if you can make a joke about something and make fun of it, your audience has to know about it already. Otherwise, the joke doesn't work. And I realized there was an event here. And which had not been noticed by historians of science and medicine. We had neglected it as a professional group because it was not his most important discovery intellectually. He managed to develop a series of shots that could protect someone who was bitten by a rabid dog, but he never found the germ. It's strictly a practical thing. On the other hand, the public loved a practical thing. There were stories every day for a couple months, every single day. What made rabies important was the fear, every parent's fear. And it's also 100% fatal. When I discovered this episode, I thought, well, this is all interesting and cool, but I didn't assume this was the first medical breakthrough. That was the first time the public got excited. As I worked on it and worked on other examples, I discovered this was the first one. It was a real turning point. We're going from newspapers that had been party organs to newspapers that are competing penny a day for new readers. If you want new readers, you want exciting stories, this is the period where we invent the human interest story. This is the period where journalism invents the interview. And so these things become part of this. They can interview Pasteur, they can interview local doctors, they can interview the dog catchers, they can interview the parents of the children who go to Paris. It was a coincidence of factors in the history of journalism and the history of medicine that made this. And then thereafter, other discoveries were sort of reported similarly. It kind of set a template for how the media covered, how the public raises money, funds a new institute. And funding is important because this got the public excited enough that they were willing to donate money for labs and research. That had never been a priority. Medical charity was for helping poor people get care, but it was not for funding medical schools or research. People say research is a worthy thing. Laboratories are worthy. And that affects chemistry and other sciences as well at this time.